my name is Nazly Mamedova. I've been in the UAS since I was about 16. My mom's family is from Crimea, Ukraine, and haven't been there in a long time, but hopefully, once we take it back, I will be able to return. And since moving to United States, I went to school here and then later started practicing immigration law because my mom was like, oh, you learned English, now I'm gonna volunteer you to a community to interpret and translate. So I think if you are a child of immigrants or immigrate here as a child, you probably know what people go through, where you are the interpreter and all kinds of stuff for your family. Immigration law is close to my heart because with time of helping immigrants, there came time when we had to help Ukrainians. So our government introduced United for Ukraine and TPS and some other things. And then since then, I've been working on that. Plus, recently removal defense, which we will go into later on. I'm admitted to U.S. Supreme Court, several district courts, and I practice in immigration court and Board of Immigration Appeals all the time. I'm also very involved with our American Red Cross on the national level and my local level in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I also work with other organizations, which we co-founded, Cincy for Ukraine, and a couple of others that focus on helping and sending aid really to Ukraine.
Honorary Consul, please.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here. Thank you for coming. My name is Karl Ahlgren. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I've been going to Ukraine since October of 2023. I just returned from Ukraine just 3 days ago, and I spend time doing a number of things when I'm there, but I'm also very active in with the diaspora in Oklahoma and in Tulsa specifically. And one of the things that we have focused on, which this panel is about, is of course the Ukrainian nationals that are here. They're working, they're paying taxes, they're doing all the things that they should legally, and so we're very, very honored to have the opportunity to do that. One of the things is, this was my 6th time, and one of the things that we formed is a partnership with Tulsa, Oklahoma and Sumi. And so we have that relationship just starting. I spent a week in Sumi. Most of you probably know, but if you don't know, it's a frontline city. It's just 30 kilometers from the Russian front. Actually, less than that now because of the incursions that are taking place. So they're defending and battling their city every single day. I could give you a number of examples of how they're doing that, but I just want you to know it's important for what you're here for, and hopefully you'll learn some things from us today.
Thank you. Mayor Karl.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. So yes, my name is Karl Sheline. I'm the mayor of Lewiston, Maine. A little bit about my city. So Lewiston, yes, is in Maine, second largest city in Maine. And Lewiston is a city of immigrants, built by immigrants. And we've had successive wave of immigrants come to Lewiston. French Canadians, Irish, more recently Somalis, and more recently Ukrainian refugees. I work hard to make Lewiston a welcoming place, and this also includes our new Ukrainian refugees who are now our neighbors and friends and partners in success for Lewiston. I've worked to I've worked to help to support the Ukrainian refugee community in the Lewiston area and in Maine in a number of ways. I work on connecting people. When you're new to this country, you don't know anybody, and conversely, when you're mayor, you happen to know everybody. And so, helping to make connections in terms of legal advocacy. We're going to hear, I'm sure, from Nazly about issues with work authorizations and so forth. So connecting with our federal representatives and their caseworkers, and then also just government assistance in general. And as mayor, it's important to show up for your residents. So I've made a number of mayoral proclamations about Ukrainian independence and Holodomor, and one could say that these are performative in nature. As mayor, I tend to disagree with that. I was talking with a friend last night, and she was saying like they are legitimizing Ukrainians, their struggle and their experience, and wholeheartedly agree with that. And it's also, in some sense, validating them, and it's really just in solidarity. So happy to support our Ukrainian community in this way. And then also, people want to know that their elected officials care about them. And so a large part of my support has been to just like showing up for people and listening. I was talking with someone who's going through a really tough time in terms of like work authorization. There are a lot of unknowns, and if this happens, then we'll have to do this, and so on and so forth. And we got to the point where I didn't know what else to say, and I just said, we will never give up. And people just need to know that you care about them and their struggles. I also help support Ukrainian events in Lewiston and in Maine. We've had there's like two kinds of events. There's like events for Ukrainians by Ukrainians, and so by Ukrainians for Ukrainians. I think like Ukrainian picnics, it's important to be in community with one another, eat borscht and pampushka. I also learned how to bake pampushka, by the way. Check out my Instagram page. A shameless plug here. And then we've had a number of cultural events, and these are really important for helping to introduce the people of Maine to Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian food. We've had cooking classes where we've taught people how to make varaniki, vatrushka. It was absolutely delicious, and they were sold out. People love this. Our community at large were up for these kinds of events. And then more recently, we've also had a human rights attorney, Anastasia Donets, come up from Boston, who works with IPHR, and talk about Russian war crimes at our local educational institution, Bates College. So just a number of events connecting Ukrainian community and help educating and providing cultural awareness.
Thank you. Before we get into the questions, just right before I walked in here, I got an email from the staff of Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, and I just want to read it to you because nobody was able to be present here. So I apologize, I'm reading the first time myself. Thank you to the American Coalition for Ukraine for convening this important discussion on supporting Ukrainians here in the United States. As the Ukrainian people face ongoing aggression from Putin, they yearn for and are fighting for freedom and democracy. As the conflict continues, we know an increasing number of Ukrainian nationals have sought state harbor in America. All too often, they encounter hardship with an increasingly unpredictable process, and our office has worked on a number of these Ukraine-related immigration cases, particularly through the United for Ukraine program. While we cannot guarantee a successful outcome from this administration, we can help ensure cases are reviewed with all relevant information and that individuals are not lost in the system. Every case is different, and strong documentation such as clear evidence and concise explanation of urgency can make a meaningful difference. We also continue to see legal challenges under the current administration for the broader temporary protected status program, which is why Senator Van Hollen is fighting in the Senate to create a pathway to legal permanent residency for TPS recipients through his bill, the Secure Act. For many, there is no safe option to return home. It is a war zone, and that makes timely decision critical. And we encourage anyone that is facing these challenges to reach out to members of Congress in your community so we can better understand the barriers you're encountering and work towards solution. Thank you for your continued advocacy and partnership in supporting Ukrainian families. Now, I think we're going to get into some legal questions because this is one of the most asked when we get refugee calls in our Leonid Foundation daily, nonstop. So, what are the most common? What's the most common you see, like in detention centers right now, that people are getting arrested and detained at the moment?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've seen an uptick in detention of Ukrainians. In detention of Ukrainians all over the United States, but specifically down south. So, for example, and Karl will speak to that more, but Karl and I worked on several detainees who were detained in Oklahoma by Oklahoma Highway Patrol. No one had any criminal record. There was no reason to detain them other than national origins, and their documents were all valid. So we're seeing that more and more happening with the Ukrainians who came on United for parole to the United States. Or there's also been incidents with the Ukrainians who have filed for an asylum applications and those been pending. But this is the most vulnerable population, and this is a population that is being detained. One of the documents in the gentleman I represented actually had a directive from Department of Homeland Security saying that DHS headquarters have directed that all Ukrainian parolees to be detained, which would be over 230,000 people currently in United States with the legal documentation and valid documentation that has not been expired or terminated. So this would create a huge mess legally. However, unfortunately, department also has directives on certain quotas that they have to meet. So it seems like there might be some move to push to create that undocumented population, which we are advocating as a part of American Immigration Lawyers Association and part of the Ukrainian Immigration Task Force. Those two groups are advocating and trying to push back on that.
Okay. Karl, Honorary Consul, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think as Nazly's well stated, the key issue here is that these Ukrainian nationals are here legally. They are under the due laws that they have come. And one of the things that many people don't realize is they have gone through many security checks to come here. They have gone through biometrics, they've gone through security background checks. And so it's important for you to understand when you're advocating for them that they have the proper documentation to be here and they haven't committed any unlawful acts. The ones that are being detained in Oklahoma are truck drivers. And so I've specifically reached out to the Commissioner of Transportation in Oklahoma. I've also reached out to our elected representatives, but it really began actually some years ago with just some of the people that I had met, and we'll get more into that hopefully in a few minutes. But the key is understand that these are not people that have crossed over the Mexican border, Canadian border, someplace like that. They have come here and they have sponsorship with people that are here, U.S. citizens, and I know some of you I've talked to from different states that have actually represented them and brought them here.
Thank you. How can congressional offices assist in detention and removal cases, and when should they be contacted?
I guess any of us can.
Yeah, any of you.
So I would say contact your congressional, if you hear that a Ukrainian in your community has been detained, contact your congressional offices right away. It's not very easy to get an information out of Department of Homeland Security. It takes time, and also it takes lots of paperwork. There is certain waivers that have to be filled out properly and submitted to your congressional representative for them to provide any kind of help on the case. It is also very important when you go out today and tomorrow, right? No, Tuesday? We're going Tuesday and Wednesday and advocate. Make the relationships with your congressional representatives. Take the cards. Even if you do not see the congressperson, right? Your senator, your congresswoman, congressman, in person, their aides are just as important because normally they would realize the information. They might be the case managers who work on immigration issues. So take the cards, establish relationships. When you go home, email them, follow up, schedule in-district appointments, get to know them. Because one day when a Ukrainian in your community is detained, you will be able then to make that phone call, send that email, and ask for help.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. I spent 20 years working on the Hill, both as a chief of staff, but also in the district staff. And those are real people in the offices. They care about the people that they're representing. And even if they're Ukrainian nationals or other people that are here, and building those relationships now, when you go to the offices, ask, well, who handles your immigration casework in the district office or in the state? And then get their name, get their phone number, and then go and see them. Go set up an appointment, go talk with them, and just say, hey, I'm not here to ask for anything right now, but perhaps in the future I might need your help. What is the process? Can you help me understand what is important for us to know? And they're going to be so much more open, so much more relaxed in just being willing to do it. And so I would just highly recommend that as we're, as you're building those relationships.
I absolutely agree with everything they just said. When the administration has detained somebody, they are working very, very quickly to just get them out the door as soon as possible. Deported back to their home country, and so time is of the essence to connect them with legal help, and then connect them, yes, to caseworkers, either at a senator's office or a representative's office. And you're all leaders here. You're all responsible for Ukrainians in your state. And what they said is absolutely accurate. You need to get in touch with the caseworkers in the district office and just get to know them. Definitely email them. Try to get a meeting if you can. I realize I have a little bit more of an advantage of that than most, but it's important to connect with them so that way when something happens, you know exactly who to go to, and you can connect people with resources immediately. And they, what the Honorary Consul just said was absolutely accurate. These people care about the people in their community. They live in their community. They know, sometimes they, in Maine, we're a small state, right? The people say that Maine is a big, small town. And some of these caseworkers even know the people who are being detained. I just met with the caseworker, Christina, who handles the immigration casework in Representative Pingree's office. A beautiful individual, and is working hard to help with Ukrainians' cases and people's cases from all kinds of countries.
Thank you. And we get this question as well, like a lot, because a lot of times people cannot track when somebody is detained and they don't even know about it. How do you find that person? What do you do? How do you reach out? How do you connect them with legal help? All of this comes as a question, like, what do you do?
Absolutely, and sometimes it's really, really hard because the government fast-tracks them and moves them so much that sometimes we as an attorneys are unable to find our client or unable to file for something because we filed in one court, then our client is moved, and then the court is like, sorry, your client is not here, go to another court, find him again, or her. But there is a couple of resources. First of all, like Karl said, please do get legal representation for Ukrainians who were detained. But also there is a public website called ICE Locator And it's a government website where if you know your Ukrainian person very well, you know their A number and you know their country, that's two things you need, you would be able to find where they are. However, if they don't show up in the system, it would be only the legal representative who is able to enter their appearance through the DHS system. We have a G28 forms that we do as the representatives, and then we would be able to see where the person is. So we still do have access to them, but it takes time. There is a public project now happening that is kind of tracking people, but it's not fully up and running yet. However, there is a separate project that is going to show where people are detained, even if the government websites don't.
Thank you. Also, and I know that most of the questions I have are legal questions, what if there are status lapses like TPS or U4U, and for U4U, for example, they already submitted the paperwork, it's been over a year, and they still don't get it, and the time lapses, what happens? How can they legally stay here, like, in terms of while they wait for the paperwork, because officially they're not legally here?
Yeah, so good question, and please do not wait till last minute. That's really the answer. And this is where your congressional reps come in handy. So if you know that time is coming up for your work permit didn't come, or your renewal of the status, or your parole or TPS didn't come yet, reach out to your congressional offices. We recently had someone who reached out, who is also a truck driver, and they requested to expedite. Our client received his work permit, for which he was waiting for almost a year, in 3 days. No. I'm not saying it's gonna happen to everyone, but they did reach out, they talked to the case manager, and she was able to do this. They presented that there was a hardship to the business and to the Ukrainian, and USAS accepted it and issued the work authorization right away. There's a lot of issues that will be coming up with people who have TPS. Ukrainian TPS is very interesting because TPS itself expires in October of this year. However, the work permits were automatically extended only till April of this year. So a lot of people have a TPS status, but they're not going to be employable or unable to work because the work permit expiration date expires. Again, for this, please file the work permit applications early on, and then contact your congressional representative asking them to expedite. A lot of the Ukrainians who are employed, and in Ohio we have oldest Ukrainian community in Parma, Ohio, north. So a lot of employers there employ Ukrainians and new Ukrainians who came in also. A lot of them, go to our Congress people, senators, saying, hey, we have this plant, we need this guy to be employable, so can we expedite the work permit? It works.
One of the things I wanted to add to that is that with the status running out and they're getting ready to apply, it's important that they have a representative from the U.S. that helps them. That's not only from the legal side, but from the community side. I've got to know the diaspora in Tulsa very, very well, and a couple of them approached me and said, would you consider writing a letter of support? You all can do that. It's a very simple thing to do, but it helps connect that bridge that is so desperately needed. It's a very practical way to really support the Ukrainians who are applying for re-parole, and it will give the government that assurance that, yeah, this person that's reviewing this particular status goes, yes, I know that they have a local community that's supporting them.
Thank you.
Since Karl brought up letters of support, yes. So I've written several letters of support for cases. Thankfully, to my knowledge, We have had no Ukrainian detained in Maine, but I've written letters of support for people from the Congo, etc. And don't be afraid to reach out to your local, your local mayor, representatives, and ask for a letter of support. I would hope that they would be open to that.
Thank you. I'm sure we have a lot of questions from the audience, because I have a lot, but I'm sure a lot of questions from the audience, and we don't have too much time, so I think we should go into the questions. Yes.
Hello, my name is Galina, and I'm Ukrainian, also on TPS. And I read in the internet because
Yeah, hold on, we're going to use the mic here.
yeah.
So there are two ways we can do questions.
Oh.
One, and I'm just gonna quickly say here. So one, questions are submitted online. You have a QR code that you can use, and that's one way, and I'm gonna read them, but we're gonna go to questions from the audience, and then I'll read some of the questions that we received during this panel, okay?
Okay.
Helena?
We'll try to.
No,
do
no, no, no
quick.
worries.
Okay, hello everyone. I want to ask, according to the TPS question about the work authorization that ended in April 19. There's information in the internet that due to bills and some different situation that was happening, that the work authorization can be extended till July 22nd. Is that true? How does that work? Officially, there's no information about that on the website.
So there's something
But
else.
there's, yeah, sorry, I just want to add because there was some updates on the USA official website.
There was not update.
There was some updates, but it was not specifically tell that. It was just interpretation that it's extended till the July 22nd.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Thank you.
I looked at it on Friday because I was here actually in DC for American Immigration Lawyers Association spring conference when we have USCIS, Department of Homeland Security, ICE, EOR, and removal come in and speak to us. This year there were very few of them. Department of Labor showed up in great numbers. But unfortunately, there's something else is happening. There was a lawsuit for TPS recipients that included Syria, Haiti, and some other countries, not Ukraine. And there was an order from federal judge that extended the work authorizations indefinitely until the litigation is happening. However, it does not apply to Ukraine. I am unaware of the July 22nd, but I'm thinking, like I looked at it on Friday, I don't think they might have changed Saturday, Sunday, given how slow our government is. So, but it's very important to not confuse those two because Ukrainians are not in that TPS litigation.
Okay, I see some questions in the audience. Let's go around. You're going to be first on my right. Would you mind coming here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this question is for Nazly. Let's see, I've sponsored 4 Ukrainian families. The last ones couldn't come over. For the other 3 that are here, where can I get that information that you gave so I can share it with them online?
Absolutely. Thank you for the great question. So we do have a Ukrainian immigration task force, okay? This is a lot of attorneys across the country who speak Ukrainian or have some ties to Ukrainians or just, came and volunteer and helping us because there's so few of us that can cover everyone. Ukrainian Immigration Task Force has their website, so I would direct you to reach out there. And they not only have the information, but they also have tips on how to do things. Additionally, they have a list of the attorneys who would take on the free consultations or provide sometimes pro bono case help. So I've taken on a couple of the detained cases and did them pro bono, including filing habeas petitions in federal court for Ukrainians. And while right now a lot of immigration attorneys are overwhelmed with work, there is still people and legal support and just informational support too on that website. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Oh.
Hi, Theo from Oregon, and when ICE or sheriff's deputies or any law enforcement entity detains people who are legally here, like you described, have documents, etc., are they just simply acting illegally these days?
The simple answer is yes. They are here lawfully. They've all their paperwork is in order. And I'll give you one specific example in Oklahoma where Nazly contacted me and said a Ukrainian national truck driver was lawfully stopped just to check his paperwork, check his truck. Everything was in perfect order. All the paperwork was there. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol officer called ICE and said, I've got this guy, what's his situation? ICE said you can detain him without even looking at his documentation. So he then was taken by unlawful removal from one part of the state to another. I called the sheriff. This gets back to advocacy. I knew the sheriff in my town. I called the sheriff and I said, Sheriff, here's the situation, showed him the paperwork. He said, Carl, he was taken through ICE. He wasn't brought through me, even though he's still in my county jail. I can't help you. I said, well, maybe you can. Can you please give me the name of the ICE director? So I persisted. I said, I want to talk to the ICE director. So he went ahead, he gave him, he called him and he said, this guy wants to talk to you. And I said, I would like to speak to you. He waited, he didn't call me. I was persistent. Again, I talked to the ICE director on the phone and I said, sir, you have him here illegally. He said, well, he kind of hem-hawed around. He said, I'm not sure. I said, what is going to happen? He says, I'm going to take him to the detention center. I said, sir, okay, this is not going to happen. I just said that, okay? I said, this is not going to happen. So, again, kind of like the mayor, I'm a former chief of staff, so I went ahead and contacted the U.S. Senator's office, and I also wrote an email to the ICE director in Tulsa. Miraculously, through Nazly's work and my work, we were able to get him out of detention and eventually his case dropped. It started all the way back with the relationships that we had developed through just the time, and I can't emphasize that enough. Go back, not only meet your caseworker, meet your county sheriff, meet your police officer, and build those relationships now before the situation develops.
Wonderful. Quick question, Carl, for you. It came through QR code, question by David Courage. Are these union truck drivers, I think this is a related question to your case, are these union truck drivers? If so, have you approached the Teamsters or other groups?
In our knowledge, no, those are not the union truck drivers, as far as we know. But I want to add something else. Because of the work Karl and I did on this case, we were able to get the person out from the moment he was detained within the 3 days. And this is amazing because normally people spend months and months in detention. Another piece to this, besides me and Karl, his friends and family were so quick. They had access to all the documentation, they had copies of all his documentation, and they were able to provide it to us. So another thing I would say, and gentlemen who sponsored the families, please have them make copies. Have those copies, because there will be a moment when you need that and you have to have it on hand right away to be able to send copies to the attorneys, to the Congress people, you know, to the ICE maybe. And when you do reach out, don't give up. You might not get email back, but there might be work happening behind the curtains. So a lot of times we reach out to the Department of Homeland Security opposing counsel, and they don't sometimes respond to us. I never give up. I keep emailing, and then eventually, or they reach out to me, or when I'm in court there, and I'm like, hey Lindsay, I emailed you several times, they will respond to you. They do see it, and they hopefully, will come out with a good outcomes for you.
Question here.
Hello, my name is Anastasia. Today I'm a part of North Dakotan and South Dakotan delegation, and I work for local nonprofit refugee resettlement agency in Bismarck. And several of our clients, including Ukrainians, received a notice from Health and Human Services that in October 2026, all the refugees that didn't receive a green card / permanent residency card will drop off from Medicaid and SNAP. So basically we will not be able to have access to those public benefits, and I just wanted to ask if there are any ways we can support those people, and if there are any strategies that already discussed to support them. Thank you.
So yes, I can tell you in my city, for instance, we had ICE come to Lewiston here in January and February, and we had residents who were concerned to go to work, they were concerned to go to school, and so we had a network of concerned community members, get people groceries, medications that they needed. We mobilized, and so I don't know exactly what will happen, like in every community around the country, but I know that neighbors care about neighbors, and for sure in my city, neighbors are certainly caring about refugees and immigrants, and I encourage everyone to work with their governor and their federal elected representatives for advocacy, and then reach out to community organizations as well.
I'm gonna add a little bit more to this. So when Ukrainians were allowed to come to the United States on United for Ukraine program, it was part of the program where they were actually allowed to apply for some benefits, including medical insurance. And it did not happen as much in the state of Ohio. Our state is pretty conservative, so not a lot of people, even who applied, were actually approved. So we have almost no one who relied on those benefits. And then later on, the program added something else. They said, oh, now if you come in on United for Ukraine, you get first 90 days that you can work without even work authorization while you're waiting for it to be approved. So that's also eliminated a lot of people from being able to apply for any programs. But we are seeing that it's going to completely go away. Yes, and there is no currently any legislation or anything else in works that will extend it in any ways, at least for Ukrainians. Because this is not just Ukrainians who are being touched by this is also general refugee population, but there is nothing right now.
Any more questions? Oh, I can't see the lighting.
It's great, I'm a tall guy. Yuri Makar from South Dakota. Question about, I think it's more geared towards TPS and maybe asylum. And the overall question is basically, how do you develop a strong case for yourself? Because I think in the past videos that I've watched about immigration, sometimes it seems like if you just say, oh, there's a war going on in Ukraine, that might not be enough. So what kind of things qualify as a strong case for people to put in their application to say, hey, I need the TPS or asylum or whatever other status to stay in the United States?
Let me jump in there real quick because she'll have more of the details, but one of the letters we got and one of the cases we just worked on specifically talked about the community back in Ukraine that they were from, And this particular community had just been shelled several times. And it helped getting that letter and describing exactly what's taking place in Ukraine. And I can tell you, having just been there, the war is still raging on in many frontline cities, but not even frontline cities. Lviv got hit, other cities that are farther away. So getting that information and having a letter that can specifically talk about this is still an active war zone is extremely important. It's part of that bridge that you're trying to build between the Ukrainian national and the person that's handling the case.
It is extremely difficult to work Ukrainian asylum cases. And there's several reasons to it. One of them, a lot of Ukrainians do not apply for asylum. They want to return to the home country. They want the war to be over, and they want to go home. So many we talked to, including actually a couple of clients that Karl and I worked on and got them released, they didn't want to go in immigration court and apply for asylum as relief because they said, we want to go home. You know, our families are there, our lives are there, and what's happening is what's preventing us from going home. Another thing is for asylum, and there's other reliefs available, you have to prove that your government or the agent of your government, have been persecuting you based on certain criteria. Well, in Ukrainian government, with the exception of a few cases, does not really persecute their own population, right? It's Russia that's another agent in that, that's invaded parts of Ukraine now. So those are very difficult. I would strongly suggest to seek legal representation because in immigration courts, we actually have statistics on this. People who do not have legal representation lose their cases almost 97% of the time. So having legal representation raises your chances by just so much that it's absolutely worth it. However, I also know that not everyone can afford this, and not just afford this, but it's also attorneys, as I said earlier, so overwhelmed they might be unable to take on the case. But finding legal representation is important. There has been several grants that were given out to a nonprofit to represent Ukrainians specifically. I would say finding one of those organizations and reaching out to them would be very helpful. Reaching out to the Ukrainian Immigration Task Force or your local chapter of American Immigration Lawyers Association would be another resource to go to.
I cannot reiterate that enough. When I talk to people, I'm like, I'm your mayor, I'm not your immigration attorney, and you need to contact them immediately. You can only search on the internet so much. You can only talk to your neighbors so much unless your neighbors are immigration attorneys. Please, don't even get me started on ChatGPT. I understand there's a cost involved and so on and so forth. I'm happy to hear that there are grants and options available. But please, contact an attorney. Don't waste any time. I'm really great that you called the mayor, but contact your attorney.
Can I add just one thing briefly? Make sure you find the right attorney. And I say that sincerely. We actually had an attorney that was representing one of the clients that Nazly and I worked on, and they weren't able to communicate, even they had to have an interpreter. But once we had Nazly speaking directly with the client, helping to facilitate the process. So, and I don't doubt that this other attorney was trying to do their best. They just didn't have the ability or the knowledge or the experience. So it's very, very important. It's just like if you were going out to look for a personal attorney to represent you, you would want to find the expert in that area. So I can't emphasize that enough as well.
So we have several quick questions. So and again, we're running a bit over time because of the delay in the morning. So we'll give it 10 more minutes to people who already raised their
probably been asked, I'm from Mississippi, a farmer, and very involved with helping families come on U4U. And my question lies more at a higher level. Like, I think once we get into that legal part, which we need, but we already have a problem. So I think we need to change the mindset and attitudes of our communities and our people, and ultimately that comes back to Congress. And so how do we go about, what are some practical ways to change the hearts of our community and neighbors and people that we are around?
Well, I think it's for each of us is to become active in the community itself. And so one of the things that we've done in Tulsa is we have helped sponsor a American-Ukrainian prayer breakfast, and it brought the community together. The first one we did was last year in 2025, and we had expected maybe 150 people. We had over 220 people come. And we had media coverage from all 4 major TV stations, print, and so forth. And so from a practical standpoint, raising that awareness and on a higher level to where the elected officials, and you invite them, they may not come, most of them didn't come, but you invite them, you give them the awareness that this is much broader than maybe the 5 or 10 people that are making noise that are against Ukraine or against things that are happening. So I think from a practical standpoint is do some community events. So we've centered those around February and August, but we're also doing things in between to show films at a local cinema, maybe an independent theater. There's things that you can continue to do throughout the year to raise that from a practical standpoint.
I couldn't agree more. You know, we talked about the cooking shows that ended up on the front page of the paper. We've done other events that have been covered on Maine Public Broadcasting, and then on TV, etc. And I think it's a duty for all of us to push back. You know, the phrase that I like to use is, I don't let people believe that the earth is flat. And so, you know, when I hear a comment about how refugees are taking all our jobs and resources, I'm like, I push back immediately. I don't want people to leave that conversation thinking that I agree with that kind of nonsense. And so I think it's, you know, I could get dragged into an argument like about 100 times a day. So I'm not saying that we need to go back and forth, but, you know, explain how, you know, refugees and immigrants in Lewiston are partners in success. They've started businesses, they work in our companies, and they're helping to grow our community. It's a duty to really speak the truth.
More questions here?
Hi, Amanda Hall. I'm from the Nebraska delegation. Our local immigration attorney communities have been muttering a bit about if they just don't adjudicate TPS for Ukrainians, and if it just isn't processed by USCIS, then that gives the federal government and gives ICE an opportunity to just pick up all those people. And I'm wondering if you have any insider thoughts about that.
So yes, in terms of there's absolutely, as I said earlier, a push to make documented people undocumented, so then they can get detained. And I would strongly suggest, especially in Nebraska, reach out to your congresspeople, ask them for case assistance. They might not want to do it, but they have to do it. So remind to them that they have, you know, a duty to represent people of Nebraska. And it's probably would be the best way to get anything moved with USCIS. Another more of a practical point, unfortunately at this time, if you have a Republican congressman, you might get actually better results because Department of Homeland Security responds to them, from what we're seeing, faster. So if you live in a state where you have one senator who's Republican, one who's Democrat, reach out to the Republican. You might get the information faster. And if they're not very helpful, then maybe reach out to the other center. Same thing goes to your representatives. but there is just in general a push to stop adjudications for a lot of things, TPS, work permits, you know, and it's not just Ukrainians, it's in general all of the population that has some kind of pending applications, including spouses of US citizens, you know, or US citizens who have applied for their parents. There's similar thing going on. There's a lot of things happening with also naturalizations. There was a directive in December where naturalization ceremonies have been canceled for everyone, besides the countries that we have some bans on now, right? We have 36 countries and 70 countries, but they've canceled it for everyone. And now they're going completely away with having USCIS officers to do naturalization itself in the office, and will be only through federal judges, which is going to create even longer wait times. We have a client who was waiting for the naturalization, got the actually receipt for naturalization ceremony in December, that got canceled, and we still haven't got a new one. And we called, emailed, and reached out. I think we will have to file a lawsuit actually in the coming months. We're waiting a certain period of time, but this is what's happening, yes.
I think Helena had a question. Oh, another one, okay.
Several people here in the back.
Thank you. My name is Maria Ulyanovska. I'm a Ukrainian journalist working in DC. So we're talking here on a case-by-case basis. If you have a case, go to your Congress representatives, let them help you. As you said, we have a bigger question coming up. The TPS is expiring in October. It doesn't seem hopeful. There is no action to prolong it. We get signals that the benefits will be canceled. So based on your information, are you hopeful that this program will be prolonged? If not, are we during this summit advocating for, I don't know, Ukraine Adjustment Act or any other legislation in Congress that can solve this problem? And if you're not hopeful at all, should we start a conversation as a community to prepare these people to be ready to leave? Because there are a lot of Ukrainians here who live in the delusion that they will get green cards very soon for no reason. Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking that question. A lot of Ukrainians do ask us, what's next, right? Because this is basically like, what's next? What's gonna happen to me and my family? And yes, there's some bills in progress, but they are not expected to go through. And with TPS ending, I was actually on the Hill on Thursday, right? And we were advocating, and TPS went through for Haitians, right? But then as soon as it got to the Senate, they basically killed him. So we're expecting same happening for Ukraine. We do not see a lot of support from this Senate in particular, but also administration to extent. I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. However, preparing the Ukrainians is very good. Just, have a plan B, but also have a plan A. There's other ways that Ukrainians might adjust their status and become legal permanent residents. Some people came and maybe got married to US citizens, Some people came and maybe their family members were here already and filed for them family reunification petitions. We have a lot of employers in Ohio who hire Ukrainians and sponsor their employment visa. So someone on TPS can adjust their status to the employment-based visa. Some Ukrainians came. We have a guy in Dayton, Ohio. He opened his own business and we got him an E2 visa. He had to leave Dayton, go out to, at that time, Madrid, Spain, US embassy there, and he got his visa, came back, and he continues his business very successfully. It's actually growing. So there's other options in immigration that don't have to be, for example, asylum or TPS related.
I think we'll have last question, 2 questions, and that's it.
Hi, thank you, panelists, for coming. Nathan Yaks, Washington delegation. I had a question I work in immigration, employment-based EB1s, EB2s, O1s, and we've noticed with our clients lately, over the past year, a huge increase and uptick in seeming USCIS willfully misinterpreting evidence or misreading forms or ignoring the inclusion of evidence. And so we've had to adjust on the fly quite a bit to be able to preempt those when they start taking a new strategy to meaninglessly deny a case. So in your line of work, Nazly, I was wondering to what degree you are having to deal with that and how things are being managed in that way.
So I do concentrate on habeas, which is federal removal work, detention, and then the immigration detention removal work. However, I will tell you this, I talk a lot to the employment, and there's another attorney in our office who does employment-based. He said there was a relatively recently actually, EB1 decision that came from the federal court that said, hey, these are the standards, that's what you need to meet, and there shouldn't be like any secondary guessing, self-searching for other reasons to deny people USCIS. So I think with that, there might be a lot of help coming out, and hopefully, things might change. But again, do reach out to the Ukrainian Immigration Task Force. If you're not a member, an attorney, you can become a member. And we have our own group, and there's several people who concentrate on employment-based immigration.
Yeah, one more question. Galina, Ukrainian, Jersey City.
Closer to your...
Galina, Ukrainian, Jersey City. One more question related also to EB1 and employment sponsorship for people who came on the parole here, U4U program. Do they have to leave the country and get immigration visa, or they can adjust because there's some, also split, thank you.
So it's not so much a split, it depends. There's certain statutes that would allow parolees, but certain do not. For most of the employment-based visas, they do have to leave. And then come back, because parole alone is not enough. However, what happened is a lot of parolees who came on U4U then were eligible to apply for TPS, and they switched. Yeah. And once you switch, even if your TPS, actually we recently had a case where person's TPS was still pending, but because there was TPS pending, they still were able to adjust the person. So switching to TPS, I know it's not possible for everyone, right? Because there's certain timeline when you were supposed to be here, but that helps a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, last question.
Well, thank you, Veronica Metanidze. I'm ACU board member and also immigration attorney. So I just wanted give opportunity to Nazly to specify the issue for CDLs, because there are a lot of truck drivers, and there is this push from the Department of Transportation to pretty much deprive all this class, even though they might have valid employment authorization, they still are not able to be driving their trucks. So I think this would be a good information for our drivers to have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Yes, a lot of people chose to get off the trucks and no longer drive because there is a push nationwide, and actually some legislation came out that certain people only with certain employment-related visas, and residents and citizens were able to receive the CDL. So currently where it stands, if you have a CDL driver license, you can still drive, but they will not renew it anymore. It will be done and gone. There are some states that went stricter and actually sent letters to people who had driver license who might have been on parole, United for Ukraine, or asylum applications pending, C8 work authorizations, and say, bring your driver license back, we're gonna downgrade you and give you a regular driver license. So it really depends on where you are in the state. but a lot of people also chose to not drive anymore because of the detention issue. Every time you go through Oklahoma, and there is a wait stations where you have to come with your truck and they weigh your truck, you know. The wait station officers would detain people, detain Ukrainians with valid paroles, valid documentation. So people just say, I don't want to experience this. I am going to get off the truck and, you know, find a job in a factory, maybe locally in my town, or some other employment.
Yep, thank you. That was our last question. I just want to say thank you to our panelists for speaking and explaining so much. I know that from personal experience with our Leonid Foundation, that making those connections with your mayors, representatives is very, very important.